Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of Soul Over Matter podcast. I'm your host, Michelle, and today we have on Jacqueline Hurst, or Jax. She is an intuitive guide, yoga teacher, and soul coach who believes in the power of living an authentic soul-led life. Her mission is to inspire and motivate others to rediscover their true authentic selves by doing the things that light their soul on fire. She is a New Orleans native, but has an adventurous spirit and travels often. So, Jacqueline, welcome to Soul Over Matter. How are you feeling?
Hi. I'm pretty good, It's just one of those days where I'm just simply at peace with how things are, and I'm just super stoked to be here. It's full circle, the fact that I'm here.
I love it. Can we just start off with how we connected?
Yes. Do you want to share, or do you want me to?
I feel like you share, and then I'll put in my blurb too.
Yeah. So in 2021, it was around like April, May-ish, I think, if I'm getting my timelines correct. I was on my own spiritual pilgrimage, is what I was calling it. And I was just traveling all around Southwest United States with my dog, who's actually sitting right behind me, Skylar. And I was soul led to go to Sedona. And I had been to Sedona once in 2014, but when I was in Sedona, I was like, okay, I want to reach out to like-hearted souls to connect with them and see if they have any recommendations or suggestions on where I should go. And of course, I went to my first place that a lot of people go to is Instagram, and went and typed on Instagram Sedona something. I don't even know what specifically, and came across Michelle's Instagram handle. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so connected with this human, this being of a light. I am just going to step out of my comfort zone and slide into her DMs. And I was like, at this point where I was just doing things that scare the living heck out of me. And I was like, I have nothing left to lose. The worst thing that she could do is just not respond. And so here I am, just sent you a message, and you end up responding back. And here we are. I don't even, 2 years later, getting
Yes,
to connect.
honestly, it feels like forever. So, anyone
Yeah.
listening, Jax and I haven't even met in person in this lifetime yet. But every time we connect, every time we talk, we're just like, how have we not met in person? Obviously, it's past life connection, but it was actually last year, 2022.
Last year?
Yeah, because I was still living in Denver in 2021.
See, this is what I'm saying. My timelines.
I know. I feel like, yeah, the last 3 years have been such a spin
Yeah.
cycle. But yeah, a year and a half.
Wow. All right.
Yeah,
Wild.
I loved it because I've done that. I've slid into people's DMs. I think that's why we connected too. It's just like stepping out of our comfort zones, right? Like doing things that
Hmm.
scare us. And we were both single ladies, nomading, traveling. I remember I was in a 3-week house sit in this like tiny town in Colorado when I received your DM, and I was just like, all right, let's connect. This is definitely soul sister energy. So yeah, how
Yeah.
was that trip for you? Like what sparked you starting to travel? And feel free to share part of your story as well, like awakening. I always love sharing other stories on here.
Yeah. So I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, but after college, I decided to go to California. I lived in California, mainly San Francisco, for 3.5 years. Then I came across country and lived in Texas, mainly Dallas, Texas, for another 3 years. And I moved from Dallas to Austin at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, because there was a lot of stuff that was like going on in my life and with work stuff. And I was being called to take a huge change. And when I was in Austin for about like 5, 6 months, but there was a lot of awakenings that were going on while I was there. And one of the things that was happening was my soul was calling me back home to New Orleans, because I was essentially gone for almost 8 years, I think 7 at that time. And I almost moved home like kicking and screaming. Like my intuition knew that like I had to go, but like my human self, my ego did not want to go. And so when I got back, I don't know, I think I was back for about like 6 months or something. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not ready to be permanently back here. So I decided to take a spiritual pilgrimage. Once again, my soul, my higher self was nudging me to go on this journey of self discovery of self, of really like peeling back the layers and uncovering parts of me that have been suppressed for a very long time. Because as a kid growing up, I just feel like I hid a lot of myself and who I was after a certain period of time. And so my soul was calling me to rediscover me at the true essence and the true core. And yeah, I ended up traveling from Louisiana to Texas to Utah, Arizona, California, New Mexico, and all around there. But it was so enlightening. Honestly, I couldn't even say the word God
Mm.
prior to that trip, and which is ironic because I grew up Catholic, and being in Catholicism, obviously God, Jesus, it's very strongly said, but I just didn't really connect to the religion. So after a while, I just completely cut off like all of my spiritual side and any sort of faith whatsoever. But on that trip, I almost hit like such a rock bottom that I just remember so clearly. I got stuck in California, Salton Sea. Like my Jeep at the time got stuck in the sand, and I just like sprawled out and laid on this sand. It was probably 106 degrees,
Oh
106
my
degrees
God.
outside. I had Skylar with me, and I was just like, okay, like screaming out loud. I'm like, okay, God, like, what do you want from me? Fine. Like, I surrender. I let go of control. I totally let go of like thinking I know I can do everything on my own. And I was just living this hyper independent life, thinking that I could do everything alone. And that was almost like a light that was turning on of like, you can do this life alone, but you don't have to. And it's going to be a lot more challenging if you do. And that just deepened my faith even more. And it was almost an even bigger spiritual awakening, because I feel like I've had two or three spiritual awakenings like before that. And each time I have one, they just get it even more and more and bigger. And so, yeah, I could probably talk for hours and hours and hours about that journey. But I ended up coming back home to New Orleans. But I'll be honest, I was feeling a little bit lost, even more lost coming home,
Mm.
because I was like, okay, well, now what? But luckily, I connected with another soul family, and they lived about an hour away in Covington, Louisiana. And my history within the past few years before coming home is running yoga studios and growing communities and teaching people how to really truly connect with themselves. And so I got connected with the family out here in Covington, Louisiana, and they needed help growing their hot yoga studio. So almost a year now, I got connected with them, and I've helped them rebrand their community, their studio, and just really help them take their mission, their vision, and their values and put it into reality. And we're just seeing such a huge growth in this big light being shined on this city. And it's just, I'm so glad that my journey led me here, because it realized like, okay, I don't want to do this journey alone. And there's so many other people who are on this journey of wanting just to be better, do better, and truly live a life that's authentically led.
Mm. Yeah, authentically led. Yes. And like-hearted. I love what you said before. Like instead of like-minded, like-hearted, right? Because
Yeah.
that's soul family, right? And also the trust, like the trust. There's so many things I can like touch on, but I feel like, yeah, the hyper independence is something coming through, and like the lone wolfing it, right? Especially as a
Mm-hmm.
female in our society,
Yeah.
right? This kind of like trauma response from like childhood, or just things that we saw growing up. And it's it's fascinating, right? How do you feel like you are like moving out of that now that you found community, and moving out of that hyper independence, like leaning on others,
Yeah.
right? So like,
Yeah.
oh, I can trust this person's support.
It's pretty amazing. I know we were talking about this before we hit record, but I've been into a lot of like holistic and plant-based medicine over the past like few years. And two of my journeys with psilocybin and ayahuasca, I was taken back to my childhood bedroom from when the pattern started of being super hyper independent. And it's because I was left alone as a child for a very long time in my bedroom, almost just, yearning for my mom. And at the time, like my mom was trying to do the best that she could. She basically raised me and my two older brothers by herself. Even though she was with my father, he was never really home because he was out trying to provide for the family. And that was another pattern that I picked up of like working so much. But now that I'm able to like see the root of how it started, I am able to see so much more clearly of like, okay, I need to honor little baby Jax and give her what she needed as a small child to be able to truly let go and move on and separate myself and detach myself from that pattern that has impacted my life, not necessarily in a positive way, but it's just impacted my life in a way that made things more tough than easier. And being now in community with like-hearted individuals and beings, I feel so much more supported in the grieving process that I'm also going through as well, because that's something else I'm learning, that it's such a sacred process, where before, none of our parents really knew how to grieve. But recently I've been almost asked by spirit to like treat this as a sacred process of something that's going to help you transform and who you really are at the true core. So has it been challenging opening up myself and really being vulnerable and authentic and sharing my story? Absolutely. It scares me every single day. Like spirit literally nudges me every single day to get on Instagram live or just like Instagram reels and just share parts of myself that I haven't shared before. But that's why I'm here. I'm here to share my story with people, to create that deeper connection with others, and to also show others that it's okay to share your story too, because there's most likely going to be at least one or two people that can relate to you, right? And that you'll change their life just by being authentic and sharing what you went through or what you got through. So yeah, nothing but good things. Even though it may seem like negative, some of the experiences, I feel like it's nothing but positive at this point.
And that's like the perspective, right? It's like
Yeah.
things are happening for us, right? And it's not the bypassing of it. It's just like we chose, right? Like I personally believe I chose my parents, right? I chose this life. I chose all these experiences so that I would remember my power. I would remember my voice. And
Yeah.
I feel I can also resonate with your story of feeling left alone, like feeling like we had to grow up so much faster, right? And almost deal with our emotions on our own. And I've worked with kids for the last 15 years of my life, and yeah, kids left to their own devices is not great.
Yeah.
When they're just left with their own emotions, they need someone to help regulate that. So
Yeah.
I'd love to know, yeah, how does it feel now having those memories come back, those like flashbacks from your plant medicine journeys, and how do you feel like you relate to your family at this time?
Honestly, I feel like I'm more at peace because, the human side of me and the ego side of me was always just blaming my parents for everything. And you said it yourself. It's like we chose our parents. And it's just so funny. I was reading a page in this book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And that was a
One
part
of
in the
my
book that,
favorites.
yeah, that of course, that's the part of the book that I was reading today, and you say it, and it was such a beautiful reminder of like, oh wow, like you are the one that needs to take responsibility for your healing because you are the one who ultimately chose this life. You can't put all this blame on your parents. And was it a slap to my ego? 100%, but
100%.
it it needed to be had. Like I needed that because before going into my ceremony, my journey this weekend, I was just at almost war, like with my mom and with my family and just everything that was going on. And I'm the only one really in the family who's doing the work, who's doing the healing for themselves. And I think I just got resentful
Mm.
that I was the only one that was doing it. And I just started to feel this sense of like anger about it too, because they're expecting so much of me, but I'm the only one who's like doing the work. And so it was a ego check this weekend, and I finally I feel like I'm at peace from it. So because all you can do is just love your parents, love your family for where they're at in their life, and try not to control who they are and what they do moving forward. All you can do is just come from a place of love in your heart, as opposed from being run by your mind and your ego.
Beautiful. Yeah, my Reiki teacher, she always says the more awareness we have, right, the more we know, the more responsibility we have, which is like another ego fucking check, right? Fuck, like, no, I want to be upset.
Yeah,
I want to like stomp my feet.
yeah.
And spirit's like, no, 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 you know better.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And it's just like looking back at how I reacted to some things. I was still that little girl
Mm-hmm.
in the childhood bedroom who got left alone and just really wanted that attention and wanted that love and nurturing. And so I guess in a way I was still living in the past. And this past weekend I was able to really close out the cycle and honor little baby Jax for really just getting through everything that she's gotten through in these 33 years of living.
And you're doing amazing work. Such
Uh,
amazing work.
so are you, my girl. That's why I felt led to slide into your DMs.
I love it. Yeah, if anyone's listening and you're like, girl, not girl crushing, but like, yeah, she's doing it too. Let me like
Yeah.
do it, do it. Even if it's you never know what can come of it. You find someone attractive,
Yeah.
like slide into their DMs, just do it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that.
It was more of so of like, I was, I just felt that connection with you because maybe we have met in a previous lifetime, or oh, you are doing what I'm currently doing or want to do. And so if you don't put yourself out there and connect with other like-hearted beings, then you're just going to continue to walk on this path of being by yourself. And so anyway, thank you for responding, because we wouldn't be here if not.
I know. I feel like I've told you this before, I think on our last phone call. I was like, I gotta get all of us nomad ladies together for like
Yeah.
a group call. And if you're also a nomad, a woman who has nomaded solo, slide into my DMs and let me know. Because I think maybe a quarterly call, something, because we're a rare breed. And yeah, it can be a lonely trip. It could be lonely to do it on
Hmm.
our own, and but so brave and so courageous. So yeah, I yeah, before we started recording, I was saying how we're filming, we're recording this, filming this around the holidays, right? And the word that comes to mind is like the rainbow sheep of the family, right? Like you just
Mm,
shared, like, oh, I'm the only one doing this work. And what advice would you give to other rainbow sheep out there around this time of year where
mm,
they might feel lonely at holiday dinner, or they might feel like no one understands them? I think that's such a big one in the spiritual communities. Like, no one understands me. Like, I'm
mm.
just misunderstood.
Yeah. Ugh, I just got straight body chills. Like hearing that question. It's the constant reassurance of self that is a must. I feel like I even was talking about this on my Instagram the other day. Is I was full of a room full of women that were pretty much all married and had kids, and when I got back from that women's gathering, I was like, oh, wow, I really am living a different life than everyone else. around me. Even though I'm surrounded by like-hearted beings, I'm also surrounded by people who are completely different from me. And so what I had said was, know that if you feel different and if you are living a completely different life than everyone around you, then it's for a reason.
Mm.
And that's your purpose. That's your journey. And the reassurance of your own journey is a necessary thing day in and day out, because when you choose to live life differently, that path is going to be a little bit more lonelier, but that's the path of lightness as a part as of darkness. So one, yeah, that just reassuring yourself, but then two, putting yourself out there to also be surrounded by people that will get you and that you can have these soul-led conversations with, and you can reassure yourself that you're not alone. Because the more and more I say I'm coming out of the spiritual closet, the more I attract other like-hearted beings, and the more I feel like I enlighten even more and understand the reason why I'm put onto this earth, or the reason why I've been able to reincarnate into this vessel of mine in this lifetime.
Yeah. And just hearing you say before how you helped grow yoga communities, right? So like you're literally
Mm,
here to connect people, to create that community, to gather people, right? To be around people. And I know you have things in the works for next year, which you can definitely talk about at the end of our episode. But yeah, I think I agree with you, right? It can feel lonely, right? It can feel lonely. And I actually think feeling lonely is one of the markers that you are on the right path sometimes,
mm,
right? Like, because
yeah,
it is,
absolutely.
there's so much distraction in our world, right? There's so many people that can't be by themselves. They literally
Hmm.
physically can't. It's too painful, right? Because when we're by ourselves, the trauma comes up, the shadows
Yeah.
come up, the wounds come up, things come up that we are called to look at. And I really, yeah, feeling lonely on the path is almost like what's the word? Not a gateway, but it's not a marker. I can't think of the word, but like a hallmark like statement of this path.
Mm,
But like you said, putting yourself out there,
hmm.
right? That's the only way I always say to clients, or like really anyone, it's how can people find us if we're not true to who we are?
Yeah. And that's what shining your light and putting your light out there does, is says, hey, like, I'm out here, I'm right here. But if you don't do that, then these other beings that you feel connected with aren't going to be able to find you. And that's actually one thing I kept getting signs from spirit of seeing lighthouses, hearing the word
Mm.
lighthouse, and like left and right for the past like 3 months. And so I have been able to understand a little bit more of my journey here, is to understand that like I'm almost a lighthouse for people. Like I shine the light on the darkness to help guide people along their path of their soul mission, right? And I'm also able to like bring to light parts of themselves that have been suppressed for a while, or parts of themselves that like maybe they forgot about because of judgment that other people put on them from previous lifetimes. But seeing that sign and being a confirmation of like a lighthouse, it almost confirmed of like, okay, a lighthouse stands alone
Yeah.
all the time, it's rooted and grounded and strong, and it has a foundation. And as long as you have that strong foundation, you
Mm.
can shine your light out into the darkness, and people eventually will see your light and come to you. So it's almost putting it back into whoever's listening of like, how can you be a lighthouse for other people that are similar to you? How can you share your story with others to help create that deeper connection with themselves and who they are and why they were put there? How can you choose to do things differently? And even though being different may be judged, the only way to live.
Mm. Yeah, I always say if we're not misunderstood, we're not living our path. There's gonna
Mm,
be someone that misunderstands you if you are living your path. There's gonna be people looking at you like you have five heads, sometimes family members, sometimes old college friends who are watching your Facebook and Instagram stories.
oh my gosh, yes.
I'm sure you have them too.
So many times I like look at who's looking at my Instagram story and I'm like, this person I haven't spoken to since high school, and all of a sudden they just popped up on my Instagram. This is strange.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but yeah, I can hear people's thoughts a lot of the time, and I'm just like, hey, I'm still gonna live my truth, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but I love
That's
that the lighthouse metaphor. I use that one too. It's
mm,
like, what if I didn't share my light, right? You wouldn't have seen another person who's similarly living that brave life, right? And it like
mm,
connected you to me, right? And it's
yeah.
just like like a web of all these lighthouses, and
Mm,
yeah, we connect, and that's like the beauty of social media. I
mm,
have countless Instagram friends and soul family that I haven't yet met in person, and it's just like we just know, we know, and we connect.
mm. Yeah, you mentioned something about this web of connections. One of my soul sisters, Heather Turner, she was also journeying with me this weekend, and she also used the metaphor of the web as well, of not like we're building our own web, aka we're building our own lifestyle, but also we're peeling back the layers of the web, of thinking of the different parts of it is all of our experiences and our stories that we've made a part of ourselves, but like that is actually not us at our true core. So we're like, I don't know if anyone can see me doing this, but I'm literally like batting all the webs away.
You'll be on YouTube.
um, but like peeling or just pushing them away. I don't even know what you would do with like spider webs. Blow them away, push them away, bat them away, to get to the soul core of like who you are, and knowing that like you aren't your stories. Do your stories define your human experience? Absolutely, but it doesn't actually define you of who you are as a person and as a soul spirit in itself. And I love that because it really helped me move forward with some things that I was still holding on to from my past, with, this family trauma, generational trauma, or even just like my own lifetime trauma as well.
Mm, yes, yeah, that it's come like we're born light, right? And our whole lifetime is us just trying to get back to that light, back to that love,
Mm,
right? So it's like I feel like as a Reiki practitioner too, I feel Reiki helps that too, because it's like we're born, we're pure, right? That's like you going back to baby Jax, right? Who is so pure, who is so unconditional. And then we choose all these stories, we choose all these layers, right? These like, I always say like clothing, they're almost like layers of clothing of experiences of
mm,
human. I mean, Earth is like the most dense place in all the galaxies, right? It's like karma school.
yeah.
And yeah, I love that, like peeling back. I shared a story yesterday on Instagram about how so much of our personality, right, is actually trauma responses, like people
Yeah.
pleasing, perfectionism, all these things. And then you wake up and you're like, wait, who am I? This isn't me. This is something a coping mechanism that I created for
Hmm.
myself to protect me. And now I don't need that anymore. How can I
Mm,
transmute this?
mm. So true. That's what I had to learn so much on this journey. And within the past year, I've been learning how to set boundaries like hardcore. And, a lot of my family, especially my mom, didn't know how to react to me
Mm,
setting these boundaries. She was calling me selfish because I was starting to set these boundaries that I literally have never set ever in my
mm,
life. So I had to try to, I was trying to explain to her, but sometimes when you try to explain why you do the things that you do, it doesn't make any sense to our parents or people that aren't on the same journey as us. But it was almost like a huge moment of empowerment and reassurance of like, oh, I did that. Like I broke that pattern of being a people pleaser and saying yes all the time, of putting everyone else's emotions before mine, and not taking on everyone's emotions and feelings and taking it home with me and feeling completely worn down at the end of the day. So I'm definitely grateful for the strength to set those boundaries. That's for sure.
How did you set those boundaries? Like, what are some like practices or tools you could share about, people coming out of people pleasing, or yeah, people sharing their truth too?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a, I feel like it's such a broad topic because you can set boundaries in a million different ways and say things in a bunch of different ways. But what I feel like was a big thing for me was finally turning down plans, or saying no to plans, or let's say I said yes to going to a birthday party, or I said yes to going over to someone's house, but like I was just feeling so energetically drained or very vulnerable. I would just be open and communicate of like, hey, like I'm really not feeling okay in the moment. I'm going to take this time to rest up and recharge my battery, and just be open like that, and having more of a confidence to express how you're feeling. And if you don't feel comfortable expressing how you're feeling, then just say something like different along the lines of like, thank you for the invitation, but this is what's aligned with me in my journey today. So just working around with different verbiage of setting those boundaries. But I'm trying to think of other examples of boundaries to set. There's so many, right?
There's so many. And we're not taught this, right? We're not in
Yeah.
society, we're not taught this. It's like you say yes. Like we're in this yes society that when we do set, like you're like, oh, I've never set a boundary with my mom, right? And it's like when you finally do set a boundary, that also gives you the opportunity to see who will last with those boundaries.
Yeah.
The people that tend to react to the boundaries negatively are the ones who benefited from them, right? So,
Mm,
um,
so
I think,
true.
yeah, right. It also, I'm sure you feel it too as an empath. I have felt it along the way. Like we almost take on their emotions of disappointment, right? Or of sadness, or of like, and then you feel like you've done something wrong. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
actually, I have put myself last and abandoned myself this whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. But they don't understand that because that's how they were conditioned. That's how they were raised and brought up. So it's almost a waste of time and energy to try to explain your change in attitude and actions. At least that's what I've
Yeah.
noticed with my mom.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And you said you touched on this before of accepting everyone else's journey, right? Accepting where they
Mm,
are. And like I always think to anyone listening, right? It's almost like I actually talked to a neighbor about this yesterday. It's like trying to explain chemistry to a kindergartner. There's nothing
wow.
there's nothing wrong with them, right? But they
Yeah.
just cannot understand it because they're not at that evolvement yet. Not that we are
Mm,
above or below, like no one, there's no hierarchy, but
yep.
it's just a frequency. It's like we're on
Yep.
different radio stations. And yeah, no matter how much you explain to a kindergartner about chemistry, they're never going to understand
Yeah.
it.
Ah, that's so good. I love that analogy. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's or trying to be upset at a baby, right? It's like
Mhm.
you wouldn't be upset at a toddler for something. You would understand, okay, that's where they are right now in their emotional
Mhm.
development and whatever. And as we know, a lot of us are walking around as 4-year-olds in these human
Hmm.
bodies, right? It's
Yeah.
this ever evolving process. And I think you are such a great example of that too, of sharing your vulnerability. I mean, I always love coming across your posts and your stories and your videos because you share from the heart. And I
Mm.
can like feel the people in your community resonating, right?
Mm.
And as scary as it is, right? That vulnerability hangover that we all get.
Oh my gosh, yes. And even though it was a thing until I started doing it.
You're just like, what's that feeling, right? But then you get all this, not that we need confirmation, but we're still human. It's nice to receive it.
Yeah.
But you're just like, wow, I'm receiving all these responses for something that I experienced. And then, yeah, I feel like we're so similar in that. It's like sharing our stories gives courage to others to share theirs or to feel like they're
Yeah.
not alone.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And this may sound crazy, well, not actually in our realm, but from a young child, like I knew that I was going to be sharing my story in some capacity. Like I never got to meet my grandmother, who I was named after, because, she unfortunately transitioned before I was born, and, she took away her own life. But ever from discovering and finding that out as a very young child, that impacted me immensely. And I feel like it almost changed the trajectory of like my life, or it like confirmed the trajectory of my life, because I just remember hearing that and being like, why? Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't want this to continue to happen in my family's life. And I almost use that as a guiding force of like, okay, there's something obviously that needs to be broken.
Mm.
And yeah, now I'm 33 years old and I can truly confirm, yes, I have been the chosen rainbow sheep
Yeah.
or I chose to be the rainbow sheep of my family to break through these generational curses of unworthiness and feeling like we're not good enough, and just allowing other people to dictate how we feel and move through life. Because unfortunately, it wasn't just my grandmother and my mom's side of the family, it was her brother and her sister as
Mm.
well, which is just so wild. So, yeah.
Yeah. How old were you when you found out that information?
I want to say 4, but
Wow.
I have no idea. I have no idea how old I actually was, but I do remember being at a young age.
And you were told the truth at that age.
No, I probably wasn't told the truth until I was like 8,
But
somewhere
even
around there.
still, right, thinking of like an 8-year-old receiving that
Yeah.
information and trying to process.
Yeah, because a lot of my family members kept telling me that I remind them of her.
Wow, how did that feel?
Well, as a young child, and maybe be like, "Oh, that's cool." Like I felt really cool. I'm like, "Oh, I'm like my grandmother," because I saw pictures of her and she was the most beautiful woman ever, and
Mhm.
she was just full of so much lightness and energy and beauty. And so to say that I remind them of her was a huge compliment to me, but that just made me even more curious of her and her life. And oh, I'm chills just saying this out loud, but she's now become one of my spirit guides. Her and my my aunts, they visit me frequently. And I was so upset as a young child that I didn't get to meet her. And maybe I was upset because my mom was always telling me she was upset that I didn't get to meet her.
Mm.
But now I'm at peace because I get to communicate with her all the time.
That's that
So,
that's the beauty of being so connected, right, to the other realm, is that death
yeah,
is not the end. Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Wow. And you're named after her. So there's that deep, deep familial connection that you have. And yeah, knowing that you are here to break that
Mm,
maternal mental health, maternal wound,
mm,
right? To And they say, yeah, sometimes it jumps generations, right? like the psychic or the spiritual. Like my grandmother was super spiritual and like
Yeah.
super witchy and did all the things, and she guided me throughout my journey last year. Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. It was really cool finding out about, um, I remember a few years ago, I would get my cards read from someone that I knew, and it intrigued me to see if I could read tarot, right? And, got my first deck and started just like giving readings to people with the deck to like some friends to test it out. And, was able to discover that like I didn't even need like the book that they give you. I was just able to intuitively read and
Mm.
guide people. And my grandmother's sister is still with us on this earth. And all of a sudden, like, I haven't seen her in years. I got a nudge from her, or probably from my grandmother, to be like, hey, why don't you go communicate or talk to my sister? And we're at lunch. And I remember it like it was yesterday, it was a couple of years ago. She she was about to say something and she's like, I want to have you over for like wine and cheese and maybe we'll, and she stopped herself. And I think she had to like tune into her body to see if I would be okay with it. She was like, maybe we can read each other's cards. And I look at her, I was like, I just started reading tarot. I mean, I don't use the cards anymore, but at that time I was like, I just started reading the cards. And of course I started like, vomiting all of what had been happening in my life. But she was like, yeah, me and your grandmother would post up in the quarter, in New Orleans, and would read people's cards on the
Oh
street.
my
So right then and there, she confirmed that I basically got these intuitive and psychic abilities from my grandmother, and it's from that side of the family. And that was one of the most reaffirming and confirming things on my journey, which helped me keep moving forward.
God. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just love hearing synchronicity stories and like connection stories, and yeah, that you just felt that nudge of like, we have to go to like we're meant to, meet up and talk about things. And I think that's what's also beautiful about trusting our intuition,
Mm,
right? Even if it's scary, especially when it's scary, to trust that like your message, right? And you talk about this a lot. It's like your message is meant to be heard, and it's not up to
mm,
us who it lands on or who hears it. We are just supposed to share
yeah.
unapologetically.
My dog and my cat were playing and I was like,
Aww.
okay, can y'all chill for a second, you're distracting. He's like, okay, mom.
So sweet. So sweet. So we're gonna wrap up. Huh, what is one, we've talked about a lot of lessons today. What is one, yeah, maybe piece of advice you can give to anyone that is afraid to share their story or worried about, yeah, judgment or what others will think of them?
It comes back to the knowing of that is your journey, and you were put on this earth to live out that journey. And the more you can reaffirm yourself and have the confidence and just that inner knowing of that is a part of you, I feel like that will alleviate a little bit of the anxiety and the stress and the fear that they may be feeling. And also questioning and asking yourself, if I share this part of my story, could it at least impact one person's life? And if it's a yes, then that should be an ultimate like green light of you should go. Because if you impact one life, it's that quote, if you impact one life, then that life impacts another life, and that impacts another life, and it just becomes this like snowball effect. And so it continues to radiate and move forward from there. And also knowing that like fear isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of the times in this lifetime, it's a good thing, right? Because if it doesn't scare you, then it's not worth doing. It doesn't bring in growth, right? It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't bring in any involvement from it. So let fear be a guiding force.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, feel the fear and do it anyway, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
is there. It's like that catalyst, right? That catalyst energy. Like anger can be the catalyst energy as well, right? Like gets
Mm,
us riled up, and we have to take action from it. We
yeah.
get to take action from it because it can't stay in our bodies, right? Then it becomes dis-ease.
Yep. Yeah. That was another thing that I was reading about.
Yeah.
Resentment just stays in your body and turns into cancer, or yeah, all these things. And even grief shows up in the lungs if you don't grieve. It's wild learning more about the body and the emotions of it all and how it shows up. It's the most intriguing thing ever. The psychology brain in me is just in love with hearing that type of story, that type of information.
Oh yeah, like everything is connected, and our bodies keep the score. That's another book, right? Our
Yep.
bodies literally keep the score of all the emotions we have ever felt in our physical bodies. And like, yeah, I've been moving through something that's been in my body for 35 years. And it's just like,
Mm,
what? Like
wow.
it just, yeah, that's where like the healing can come in, and that ever evolving cycle and journey, and not judging, we're never going backwards, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
amazing.
continue spiraling circle, the Kundalini rising.
And then like coming to a lesson with a deeper wisdom, a deeper
Mm.
understanding. And yeah, amazing. Well, I mean, thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and just chatting. I feel like we were just like having coffee at a coffee shop. Where
Yeah,
can people find you? Go
one
ahead.
day we'll have coffee in the coffee shop in person. But thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me. Truly, like I love just having these conscious conversations and sharing our parts of our story and just um reminding ourselves that we are all connected and we are not alone in our journeys, even though we feel like those lone sheeps. But yeah, if anyone wants to connect with me, they are more than welcome to find me on Instagram. That's the best way because Instagram goes out to a bunch of different avenues, which is Jacqueline Hurst. And I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, so excited to see what else you got going on in your life. I'm always so intrigued to see what you're working through as well.
Thanks, lady. Same.
Thank
And do you have any
you.
current offerings or anything coming up in the works that you just care to
Yes.
share about?
So I had just opened up my books again within this past month to do private sessions. Whether it's intuitive guidance, energy readings, divine guidance from your spirit team, or just really readings in general to understand your auric field and what may be causing blockages in your life, or even like your Akashic records reading of understand like past life trauma that's getting in the way of present life. So people can book with me via the link on my Instagram. And then I'll also be having some retreats coming up this year in 2024. So in June 2024, I'll actually be going to Sedona. It's going to be a women's empowerment retreat. And anyone who's on this soul-led journey is welcome to join, but it is going to be a smaller group. It's not going to be a huge one. So if anyone's interested in that, they can just send me a DM and I'll give them more information on that.
So exciting.
I know.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming on. I love you.
I love you. Mwah.